Welcome to 28 Days and Beyond.
Where we talk about our history, our heritage, and our culture.
I'm Amari.
I'm Kharisma. Welcome. Hello, Amari.
How's it going?
It's going.
That's nice.
How are you?
All right.
Good.
Yep.
Amari,
Yes.
question.
What's up?
You are an educator, correct?
We're not supposed to know that. It's like, yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
they
no,
are.
No, right, yep. Mm-hmm.
What made you want to get into teaching?
The responsible answer would be because I wanted to inspire the hearts and minds of young people.
Yes.
Nah, I just didn't want to get a real job. I figured I'd take employment that, put me on summers off and breaks and vacations and stuff like that.
Adulting 101, huh?
Exactly. I mean, I was like, hey, this is a way to live the college lifestyle forever. Yeah.
Yes, this is true.
But no. I mean, obviously I enjoy sort of working with, young folks. Obviously I teach at the college level, so it's a little bit, different from primary and secondary education. But, being able to sort of spark in them a love for learning that I've always had,
Mm-hmm. So at this stage, and being able to kind of impart that love for knowledge to these young people, what would you say to the importance of having teachers reflect the students that are at your place of business?
Yeah, exactly, business.
I was getting there.
Right, yeah,
it took me a while.
No,
yeah.
I think obviously it's important, speaking specifically of, for black students to have black teachers, right?
Yes.
I think it's extremely important. I didn't have a black teacher until I was in college.
Are you serious?
Oh, yeah.
How is that possible?
Did
you go to private school?
For high school, yeah, but
Okay.
even there was one black teacher in my elementary school, and I happened to not get her that year.
Wow.
Junior high, I don't think there were any black teachers. I can't.
I feel like I
recall.
can name all of my teachers, like from grade school on, and I had a lot of black teachers, and they
Wow.
were phenomenal teachers. Like, I'm still friends with my teachers. Well, now that I'm an adult, we keep in touch on Facebook and things like that. So some of these relationships that you form,
They can
last
last a while.
for a very long time.
Right. Well, we happen to be joined today by one such teacher. Carol Gibson teaches at Conestoga High School,
Yes.
and she'll be joining us when we come back on 28 Days and Beyond. And we're back with more 28 Days and Beyond. Joined now by Miss Carol Gibson.
Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Oh, it's good to have you. It's good to have you. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I grew up in the city of Philadelphia, and I happened to meet my husband, who's a Conestoga graduate in Dallas, Texas. And he had a lot of fond memories of Conestoga High School, so when we moved back to the area, he was excited about me applying to the Tredyffrin Easttown School District. And so at the time, many of the parents of color were disturbed at the fact that there hadn't been a teacher of color at the high school for several years. There had been one who rotated back and forth between the middle school and the high school based on semester, but in terms of having a full-time teacher
Right, exactly, yeah.
at the high school. So I was the first in several years.
That's incredible. Amari and I were actually talking right before you joined us about the fact that he hadn't had a teacher, African-American teacher, until he got to college. And so there's this idea, or at least from my perspective, where it's really important to be able to see yourself in your teacher, especially if you're spending, from 8 in the morning to 3 in the afternoon with these students every day.
Right. Well, interestingly enough, I was not planning to teach at Conestoga. My thinking was that I would teach in Philadelphia, where I grew up, or at the time my husband had been transferred to a church in Chester Upland, and they were having their problems then. So the thinking of lots of teachers of color is that they want to give back to their own communities. But I had a professor at Eastern University who imparted to me that there is a need for teachers of color on two fronts. One, students of color need to see someone that looks like them, and then white students need to be able to see that African Americans perform in professional roles. So that's how it all came about.
Wow.
So, but at some point you had to make that decision.
Yes, I did. And I hadn't applied to anywhere else. You know, I applied to different East Town and went through the interview process. And of course, when you go through an interview process and you get a job, of course, you kind of jump at it. And it's a good place to work. It's a good place to work.
What has been some of your interactions with the students of color, just in terms of, have they embraced you and really like been drawn to you in that environment?
Well, yes and no. I think that there are two distinct populations
Okay.
in the community. There are the people that community members that have been there for generations, people of color. And then because the high school has such a stellar reputation, there are people who move in from other areas. And so I don't, I think that because of some of the experiences of the community who's been there for a while, they're a little bit suspicious of what goes on in terms of administration and teachers, especially in regard to people they don't know. So it was difficult initially, but it's about allowing people to see that you're sincere, you really have their child's interest at heart. And so you build a level of trust. And this is my 25th year
Wow.
at Conestoga.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Wow.
it is.
I mean, so obviously you've seen all kinds of things in those 25 years.
Yes.
Have you seen any changes within, you know, the black students who come through this school? I mean, have you seen some of them taking up issues? You know, in one of our episodes, we talked with one of the students who had, you know, issues of speaking up, or, you know what I mean? Have you seen any changes within the black students who are coming through the school?
Yes, there have been changes. And as I reflect on the environment currently, you know, a lot of what goes on is societal. And so, you know, what's going on at the high school now is a reflection of what's going on in society.
Well, I think that's a good place to take a
Yes,
break,
it
because when we
is.
come back, we'll really delve into that.
Okay.
We'll be back with more 28 Days and Beyond. And we're back with more 28 Days and Beyond. So before the break, you said that there have been, the student population is reflective of society and whatever societal changes have been taking
Yes.
place. So over your 25-year career, what can you say about that?
Well, I think that the thinking of many of the students is reflective of what's going on politically and socially, and that has impacted the students of color in a significant way. And so I would say that what I've seen in the last 5 years or so is much different than what I've experienced in the previous 20 years. Not to say there haven't been problems. It's just, it's kind of like a roller coaster, up and down. Sometimes things go along smoothly,
Yeah.
and you sense a lot of harmony, and students are really getting along. And then
Wow.
there
There
are,
are other times.
yes,
Well, fairly recently, you know, in the news, we've seen a lot of stories, and one of the stories that came to mind when you were speaking is the one with the student and the Native American man, and
Yes.
the comments with MAGA being shouted back and forth. Do you feel like where you are now, are conversations and dialogues happening to kind of combat maybe some of the harsh political climate that we live in now, to kind of balance people? To kind of balance how the students are feeling?
well, there have been times when things have gotten really heated that we take a break
Okay.
and have those discussions.
Really?
But, you know, at a high school, Conestoga has a high reputation in the entire state. It's like one or two, depending on which poll you look at. And so there's a lot of emphasis on the academics. And so there are times when no one wants to step back and discuss the
Gotcha.
issues. You know, we've
Because
got to
the
get
goal.
through the curriculum. We've got to keep our status. But sometimes when things start to spin out of control, you have to slam on the brakes and have those discussions. And I think that the district has really come into the realization that there are issues that have to be addressed in terms of how students of color feel in that environment. And so even my focus has changed because I think initially many of my friends teach in Philadelphia. And so I see how many resources are available in our district. And my focus had been on students of color taking advantage of the resources that exist. But there are social implications too that kind of prohibit, you know, students taking full advantage. So it's not just a straight path. You have to kind of veer to the right, to the left, to make sure that you're addressing all the needs. And, you know, there's more research being done about how being a student of color in a predominantly white environment impacts the students, not only socially, but academically. And therefore, they're not achieving at the same rate. And then there is the economic factor that goes on in terms of even the resources that are available in the home. So, you know, exposure to cultural things, the ability to get a lot of tutoring to improve grades, all those things kind of impact how much students are able to achieve. So it's a pretty big job for the district, but I am happy to say that I think the district is moving in the right direction in regard to those issues.
Well, we thank you for joining us. I mean, you know, 25 years.
Yes,
You
that's
know,
a
and
long time.
It's definitely, and I'm sure you've seen a lot, and you've contributed a lot in that time. So we thank you for joining us on 28 Days and Beyond.
Well, thank
and we
you.
look forward to hear more about what you have going on.
Okay, thank you very much.
We'll be back with more 28 Days and Beyond. And we're back with more 28 Days and Beyond. Kharisma.
Yes, Amari.
Yeah.
Do you hope to get to 25 years of teaching?
No,
No?
I don't.
Okay.
No.
Fair enough.
I mean, like that, I'm being serious. One of the things about teaching, obviously, like, you know, there was a time when it was a very valued vocation. And I think the value of that has sort of decreased as time goes on. It's like kids who don't know what they're going to do with their life. They graduate college, they go become teachers. I never really felt like I was called to be a teacher, which is why I have so much respect for somebody who could put in 25 years and really, you know, be that committed to the vocation. But no, that ain't me.
I thought it was interesting that Carol was talking about just, you know, the changes that she saw over the 25 years.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, the socioeconomic issues, and also sometimes being in places where emotional and mental health isn't always the primary focus over
academics.
academics.
Yeah,
I
certainly.
thought that was very interesting.
I think
to hear
that's
her say.
really fascinating. But you know what? I think you know, she was talking about a specific incident or instance.
Or instances, yes.
But the reality, I think, is that's the turn that American education is going towards, right? Results-based tests, you know, teaching to the test, right? It's all about what test scores are, quantitative data, not about qualitative in developing the whole student.
And I've always had issues with that.
Because you didn't test well.
I actually tested very well.
I was all right.
But I also had test anxiety, right? So even though I tested well, it was always
Or
like
the process of
very
exactly
nerve-wracking
getting
for
working
me.
through it, yeah.
And then also, you know, as I got older, really understanding myself, I understood that there's certain ways that I learn better. Like I learned by writing things down. My brother could hear something one time and it would just, you know, sink into his brain. So I think there's also this thing that we're not really getting to, which is that, you know, we all learn differently. We all absorb information differently. So we can't be so focused on the result that we are not helping,
exactly,
you know, throughout the
along
process.
the way. And but what there's actually a lot of research that talks about cultural ways of learning.
Yes.
And there's been a lot to say that, Black students learn differently from other groups of students,
Yeah.
right? One of the main things that they'll say, especially for younger students, kinesthetic learning, which means movement up and
Right.
down, like
Yeah.
physical activity is important to the learning process, which, you'll hear a lot of people say, oh, the SAT is a racially biased test and so on and so forth. And that's part of what they're talking
Yeah.
about, right? The way that they're structuring information.
There was a test when I was a kid. I can't remember
The CAT.
what
No, that
grade
wasn't
I
it.
was in,
Yeah.
but I remember one of the answers, and it was like a big discussion because my mom was the president of the home and school where
Of
I
course.
was. Mom,
Yeah,
she
yeah,
held it
yeah.
down. But they were talking about, like, one of the questions was something along the lines of, what animals do you see on the way to school every morning? And then it was like A, a bird, B, a squirrel, C is a bunny rabbit, D, and I forget what it
Whatever
was,
it
but
is.
like the correct answer was a bunny rabbit. And it's like, if you're
Where do you
talking
live?
about
If you're in
an inner
Philadelphia, you might-
city
yeah, you ain't-
school
yeah,
in
exactly.
Philadelphia, you're
Yeah.
more likely to see a squirrel, or a pigeon than you are a bunny rabbit.
Gotta love them
So,
pigeons, yeah.
again, it's talking about those different biases that
Yep.
are there, that are present.
That's it. But
That's
we talk about those biases that are present
Yes,
here
we
on
do.
28 Days and Beyond. But
We
of course,
do.
for this episode, we've run out of time.
Always.
But, we'll be back with more.
Yes, we will.
This has been another episode of 28 Days and Beyond.
Where we talk about our history, our heritage, and our culture. We'll see you next time.
Peace.